right, so to do some additional work in Hyper-V, we're going to need an ISO for an operating system. So you can Google Windows Server 2016. There's 2019 and 2022 if you want something more up to date. I'm going to start with 2016 because I'm going to build a test environment and then look at migrating Exchange from 2016 to 2019 and potentially 2022 if they decide to do something more there. So we're going to download the evaluation license. That's here. You get 180 days for this image. Click download ISO. You can register your name here and then hit download. Now, I've actually already downloaded this license or this image. So I've downloaded this one and a few others. So in my Drive Store VM, I've got this guy here. This is what's going to be downloaded. It's about 4 gigs. And then from there, we can open up Hyper-V. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create an image. And that image is going to become a differential disk for other VMs to run off of. So it's going to save space, run faster, etc. So before we get started with that, let's come into the settings here. You can see I've actually changed the location of the virtual drive location, and then I've also created a virtual switch. So in here I've got this external switch that's running off of my wireless adapter. You can use a wired adapter. There's 3 different types of switching that you can do: internal, private, and then external. So external is going to basically put you on the network that is coming in on that switch. So the internal network then becomes like its own 192.168 address, and then it can run, and then this becomes firewalled off from the main network. So you can create kind of your own DMZ with that. And then the private network is kind of similar, but what happens there is nothing can talk to anything. So let's get started. We're going to create new virtual machine. We're going to give this a name. I'm going to start with the domain controller. Well, this is going to be actually the image. So we'll start with image. And in this particular case, I've got a little 60 gig SSD that I found laying around. And we're going to put this in here. And we're going to select that folder. So it's going to be in the image folder. We're going to store the virtual machine in this location. And in this particular case, we're going to go with Gen 2. Startup memory doesn't matter. We can change that later. We're going to put it onto that external network. And then if the hard drive, it's going to be stored here in this location. We're going to click Next. We're actually going to choose our bootable image. We already downloaded it, so put it in this drive here, VM. And it's going to be this guy, and click Finish, and you can see it's creating the disks and the virtual machines. It's very quick. It starts with a offsetting. We're going to hit Connect. When you hit Connect, a new window will pop up. You can click Start. This will start the virtual machine. You can see down in the background that the memory was being assigned and its uptime, etc. And you saw that it was booting from that image. So I clicked a button real quickly while I was talking. Click Next. Click Install Now. And you can see its setup is starting. And then you can pick your version. So there's a core or GUI installation. The GUI is, of course, an interface, where a core, there is no interface involved. So I'm going to go with the standard edition with a GUI, so that way we can play around with the GUI, and then we'll work on the core later. Click Next, Accept, and then in this particular case, we're going to do a custom. Select the drive that you're going to be installing it on, and then you can see it's copying the files. And the nice thing about Hyper-V is that even though this is running in a virtual machine, it's very fast. In fact, in many cases, I would say that some of this tends to run faster in a virtual machine than in a physical machine. the performance on a physical machine is always going to outperform a virtual machine. But if you're running something light, that's not going to be running heavy stuff. And what I mean by that is, lots of processing, lots of data transfers. This tends to be very quick. And your slowest piece of hardware in your computer is always going to be your hard drive, unless you have an SSD and it's top of the line, etc. But even then, and I'll show you what I mean while this is running. I'm going to bring up the task manager, and you can see here that SSD actually is running at 100% utilization, where my CPU is at 14, my memory is at 18. Obviously, I've loaded this up quite a bit. So the hard drive is almost always the roadblock. The network adapter is going to be the next biggest or slowest piece of machinery in your computer. But something to take into consideration, that the hard drive is always going to be the piece that takes the most beating in your computer. So while that's installing, we're going to continue here. All right, and that finished up, and as you can see, that took about a minute, and it's restarting now. So we'll wait for that to boot back up. And it's getting the device ready. So this is going to be the phase 2 of the installation. The first part was to put all the files in there. The second phase is to essentially acknowledge the hardware. You can see it's restarting again. And then pop up, we got to give it a username, a password, so super secret password. And so now that we have this password set, it's going to finalize your settings, and boom, we're up and running. Control-Alt-Delete, put in that super secret password. And from here, you can see we're on an evaluation license. In this particular case, is it okay? I don't care. In most cases, you're going to hit no. The manager comes up. You can see that the license is expired. And so that's fine. You have 180 days before they start really complaining. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run updates. So if you do update, when you search, you'll see Windows Update or check for updates. We're going to just skip right to there. And you can see now it's going to be looking for updates. So I'm going to end the video here. Essentially, you're going to see a ton of updates. And we'll come back to the differential disk in the next video. But what this is going to do is we're going to build an image with all patches on it, so that in theory, it is as complete as possible. Otherwise, you're going to rebuild this for every computer that you put out here. And what happens is that you'll end up having 6 gigs times X number of virtual machines. So if you've got 100 virtual machines, you could point this to this virtual machine, and you can say 5 gigs, 6 gigs, 7 gigs times 100 machines, which is, we're pushing 7 terabytes of data at that point. Or I'm sorry, 700 gigs of data that we're saving by creating a differential disk and then building your virtual machines off of that differential disk. And you can do this based on operating system. You could do this if you wanted to do, say, per platform. So if you know you're going to be running Exchange, for example, you could build a core Exchange image. Now, you can't put Exchange on that image, but you could put in all the .NET framework and additional software that's required for Exchange, and then create the differential disk, put it in a separate location, and then boot that machine up to then later build all of your Exchange boxes. And they have all the prerequisites, so all you have to do is install Exchange, and then the additional data used there will be significantly lower. So hopefully we'll see you next time, but this is it for today. Thank you.